I am exactly 89 years old today, and as I look directly into this camera, I am speaking to you not from the sterile, depressing white room of a suburban nursing home, but from the beautiful sunlit wooden porch of my own private lakeside cottage, listening to the wind rustle through the giant pine trees. I look like just another ordinary elderly American man, do I not? I look like the kind of sweet, quiet old grandfather who peacefully lives out his final golden years sitting in a rocking chair, waiting patiently for those rare, hurried phone calls from his busy children and grandchildren on Thanksgiving or Christmas morning. But appearances can be incredibly deceiving. Just a few short months ago, my own two adult children were seriously and secretly plotting to pack up my entire life into a few cardboard boxes, throw me into an assisted living facility, take over my bank accounts, and sell the beautiful home I spent my entire life building. Today, I am sitting here in my own comfortable chair on my own property, and I am completely, absolutely free. But the difficult journey to this beautiful freedom was without a doubt the most painful and heartbreaking emotional experience of my almost 9 decades on this earth. I need you to listen to me very carefully right now and watch this video until the very last second. Do not click away and do not pause this video, especially if you are in your 50s, 60s, or 70s right now and you falsely believe that your family will always be your impenetrable fortress of love and unconditional support. I am going to reveal a dark, unspoken truth that nobody in our society wants to talk about out loud. I am going to tell you exactly how and why my own flesh and blood stopped seeing me as their loving father and started seeing me as a massive, inconvenient burden and a real estate opportunity. And most importantly, I will tell you the one radical, shocking step I took behind their backs to take my power back and reclaim ownership of my remaining years. It all started on a quiet, ordinary Tuesday evening in late October. I was standing quietly in my kitchen, making myself a warm cup of decaffeinated tea. My two adult sons were sitting comfortably in my living room. They had driven down to visit me, supposedly just to check in on their old dad and see how my arthritis was doing. The hallway door was slightly cracked open, and because I usually wear a hearing aid, they just assumed I was entirely deaf without it. But I was wearing it, and I heard absolutely every single word they said. I heard the older one sigh heavily and say that my health was declining, that I needed constant supervision, and that the property taxes on this big 4-bedroom house were becoming a ridiculous waste of money. Then I heard the younger one enthusiastically agree. He said that if they forced me to sign over the power of attorney, they could quickly sell my house in this hot real estate market, use a small fraction of the money to put me in a decent memory care or assisted living facility, and then invest the massive leftover profits into their own struggling businesses and their kids' college funds. They were calmly and casually discussing my future, my money, and my ultimate demise as if I were already dead and buried. They were talking about me as if I were a broken-down old Chevrolet sitting in the driveway that finally needed to be sold for scrap metal just to free up some space. In that exact horrifying second, my entire world did not just break, it completely vanished into thin air. I stood there frozen, holding a ceramic teacup with shaking hands, and I finally understood the bitter, cruel lesson that so many of us older folks learn way too late in life. We gave them absolutely everything we had, and we ended up with absolutely nothing. but disrespect? How did we even get to this miserable point? How could my own boys, the children I would have gladly taken a bullet for, sit on my couch and coldly calculate my expiration date behind my back? To truly understand this, you have to take a long, hard, honest look at your own life. How many times have you completely denied yourself something you desperately wanted just for the sake of your kids? How many times did you work grueling double shifts at the factory or stay late at the office until midnight just to make sure their college tuition was paid in full without them having to take out massive student loans? How many times did you completely drain your own hard-earned savings accounts to help them with the 20% down payment on their first suburban homes? I did all of that and more. My entire existence revolved entirely around making their lives easier. When my beautiful wife of 50 years passed away 15 years ago after a brutal fight with cancer, I was left completely alone in that massive empty house. And in my grief, I did exactly what so many grieving widows and widowers do in America. I completely dissolved my own identity into the lives of my children. I became their ultimate permanent safety net and their free emergency resource. I bailed my youngest son out of a $50,000 credit card debt when he foolishly lost his corporate job. I canceled my own dream retirement trip to Europe so I could stay home and babysit my 3 wild grandchildren every single weekend so my oldest son and his wife could go on romantic vacations and save their failing marriage. I was always there the very second their phones rang. But do you know what I eventually realized through a river of tears? I realized that after you turn 60 years old, being too available to your family is a huge, devastating mistake. It is an absolute catastrophe that we blindly create with our own 2 hands out of misplaced love. When you always say yes, when you are constantly ready to sacrifice your own peace and comfort for their minor conveniences, they completely stop valuing you. It is basic human psychology. Anything that is given away for free and is constantly available quickly loses all of its perceived value. They stop looking at you as a respected elder, and they start taking you completely for granted. You slowly transform from a beloved parent into a convenient household appliance. You become nothing more than a walking ATM machine, a free round-the-clock babysitter, and a silent problem solver. My sons had completely stopped talking to me like I was a living, breathing human being with my own complex feelings, fears, and dreams. Their weekly phone calls had become shorter and colder. They never asked about my doctor's appointments. They never asked about my loneliness. And they certainly never asked what I actually wanted to do with the remainder of my life. I was just a tool to maintain their comfortable upper-middle-class lifestyles. And when this old tool started getting a little rusty, when my knees started popping, when I walked down the stairs, and when I started walking a little slower, they immediately decided it was time to throw the tool in the garbage and cash in on the warranty. That night, after they finally drove back to their respective homes, I could not sleep for even a single second. I sat alone in my dark living room in my old leather recliner, just staring at the glowing embers in the fireplace and looking at the dozens of framed family photographs lining the mantel. I saw pictures of them as little toddlers laughing on my shoulders at the state fair. I saw pictures of us standing proudly on their college graduation days. I searched desperately through all those frozen happy memories, trying to find the exact moment where I went so horribly wrong. Why did they grow up to be so incredibly selfish and indifferent? And then the agonizing truth hit me like a physical punch to the stomach. They were not born selfish. I actively taught them to be exactly this way. I trained them for decades to believe that my life had absolutely no independent value unless it was actively serving their needs. I willingly handed over the complete control of my schedule, my finances, and my dignity. We older Americans often cling desperately to this toxic Hollywood illusion that if we just give our kids every single drop of our blood, sweat, and tears, they will magically be overflowing with profound gratitude and will happily take care of us in our old age. That is a massive lie. Nobody respects a person who does not fundamentally respect themselves. I finally understood that my boys did not actually wish me any physical harm. They were simply looking for the most convenient, efficient, and profitable exit strategy for their own problems. Forcing me into an assisted living facility solved all of their issues instantly. It completely removed the heavy burden of ever having to personally care for me as I aged, and it simultaneously unlocked a massive pile of cash from the sale of my fully paid-off house. It was just cold, heartless corporate math to them. But my house was not just a real estate asset on a spreadsheet. That house was the sacred place where I lived for 40 beautiful years with the only woman I ever truly loved. It was the place where I personally planted every single rose bush in the backyard with my own bare hands. It was my sanctuary and my fortress. And the sickening thought of some stranger or bank taking over my fortress and dictating where I would sleep and what time I was allowed to eat breakfast woke up something deep inside my soul that had been dormant for decades. It woke up my pride and my fierce independence. Right then and there, I made a silent, ironclad vow to myself that I absolutely refused to be a helpless victim in the final chapter of my own life story. The very next morning, I woke up before the sun rose at exactly 5 o'clock. I drank a strong cup of black coffee, I shaved, I put on my very best tailored navy blue suit, and I drove straight into the city. I did not call my kids. I did not ask for their permission. I did not ask for their advice. First, I drove straight to the expensive downtown office of a ruthless estate planning attorney. I completely rewrote my last will and testament from top to bottom. I established a bulletproof, ironclad living trust that heavily restricted their access to my capital. I made sure a portion of my money was designated for my own future medical care and another portion was locked away purely for my own personal enjoyment and luxury. Then I drove across town and walked into the office of the most aggressive luxury real estate broker I could find. We drove back to my house and did a full appraisal. Because I had maintained the property so perfectly for 40 years, it was worth significantly more money than I had ever dared to imagine. Armed with that knowledge, I then took a long, scenic drive 3 hours north into the mountains to a quiet, picturesque lakeside community that my late wife and I had always dreamed of moving to but never did because we were always too busy paying for our kids' emergencies. I found a stunning, perfectly sized 2-bedroom wooden cottage sitting right on the edge of the crystal clear water. It had a wraparound deck, a stone fireplace, and absolutely 0 stairs for my bad knees. I wrote a massive check and I bought the property with cold, hard cash right on the spot. All of these secret tactical maneuvers took me exactly 3 weeks to complete. For 3 entire weeks, I operated in total absolute silence, like a military general planning an invasion. I felt an incredible surge of adrenaline that I had not felt since I was 40 years old. The blood was finally pumping through my veins again because, for the first time in half a century, I had actually grabbed the steering wheel of my own destiny. And then the inevitable day of reckoning finally arrived. It was a Sunday afternoon, and my two sons drove up to my house together for what they thought was going to be an easy intervention. They sat down on my living room couch, exchanged a nervous, knowing glance, and my oldest son cleared his throat. He leaned forward, put his hands on his knees, and said, in that incredibly patronizing tone people use with toddlers and the elderly, "Dad, we really need to have a serious sit-down conversation about your future and your health. We found a really fantastic premium assisted living community just a few miles from my office, and we think it is time to put the house on the market." I did not yell. I did not cry. I simply held up my right hand and stopped him dead in his tracks. I calmly walked over to the heavy oak dining table, picked up a thick manila folder, walked back, and dropped it right onto the glass coffee table in front of them with a loud slap. I looked them dead in the eyes and spoke with a voice as cold and hard as solid ice. I told them, "I know exactly what you want to talk about. You want to talk about locking me away in a nursing home and liquidating my house so you can pad your own bank accounts. Well, you do not need to bother wasting your breath because I already sold the house." You should have seen the color instantly completely drain from their faces. It was a picture of absolute unadulterated shock and panic. My youngest son jumped up from the couch and yelled, "What did you do? How could you do this without consulting us first? Are you going out of your mind?" I looked right back at him and said, "Why in the world would I consult you? This is my house. I bought it. I paid the mortgage for 30 years. I maintained it. And now I have sold it. I bought myself a beautiful little cottage up by the lake. I have already hired a professional moving company, and by this time next week, I will be completely gone. And let me make one more thing absolutely crystal clear to both of you right now. My money is my money. I earned every single penny of it through my own blood and sweat. I fully intend to spend the rest of it entirely on myself, on my comfort, on my health care, and on my peace of mind. You will never have to worry about changing my diapers or feeding me, but you will also never have the right to touch my property or dictate my choices ever again. The living room fell into a dead, suffocating silence. They were completely paralyzed. They simply could not process the fact that their reliable, easygoing, endlessly generous father had just brilliantly blown up their greedy little master plan. They tried to argue. They tried to guilt-trip me. They tried to claim I was suffering from dementia and could not take care of myself. But I simply turned my back, opened the front door, and pointed outside, telling them it was time to leave. It has now been exactly 1 full year since that dramatic afternoon. I am sitting here right now on the wooden deck of my new cottage, watching the sun set over the calm water, listening to the loons call out across the lake. I hired a local teenager to mow my lawn and shovel the snow, and I have a wonderful retired nurse living next door who I drink coffee with every single morning. And do you want to know what happened with my two sons? Once they finally realized that they had absolutely zero financial or emotional leverage over me anymore, their entire attitude completely changed. They no longer call me demanding money or trying to drop their kids off unannounced for free babysitting. Now, they call me just to politely ask, Dad, would it be all right if we drove up to see you next Saturday afternoon? They finally started treating me with genuine respect. And they did that because I finally demanded that respect by respecting myself first. I am recording this long message today for anyone out there who can hear my voice. I need you to listen to me and let these words sink deep into your bones. The clock is continually ticking down, and every single day you have left is a precious, finite resource. You must live your life as if it were your very last day on this earth, because this is your last chance to be happy. You do not owe your adult children your sanity, your savings, or your freedom. You are not a sacrificial lamb, and you are not a free public resource. Your life does not simply end the moment your kids leave the nest, and your only purpose is not just to guarantee their financial comfort while you rot away in a tiny room somewhere. If you are sitting there right now feeling entirely unappreciated, if you feel like your family is just using you until you run dry, you need to stop right now. Take a massive step back. Draw a hard line in the sand. Stop being so incredibly available to people who only call you when they need a favor. Yes, I know it is going to hurt. Yes, your kids will probably throw temper tantrums and act betrayed. But standing up for yourself is the only guaranteed way to take your life back and maintain your dignity until the very end. Do not ever wait for someone else to decide which depressing nursing home you are going to die in. You make the choices. You sign the checks. You live these final years exactly the way you want to live them because you have absolutely earned that right. Please leave a comment down below right now and tell me the truth. Have you ever faced heartbreaking ingratitude from your own children? Have you ever sacrificed your own happiness just to make their lives easier? And what exactly did you get in return for that sacrifice? Please share your raw, unfiltered stories down in the comment section, because your bravery might just be the exact wake-up call that saves another senior citizen from making a terrible mistake today. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Take care of yourself, guard your heart, protect your wallet, and remember that as long as you still have breath in your lungs, it is never ever too late to completely change your life.